Gandaki Gorge in Nepal slices deeper than most can imagine, plunging between Annapurna and Dhaulagiri to form one of the planet's most dramatic rivers. Do you know the Gandaki exposes fossilized ammonites on its cliffs? Ancient sea creatures that prove this high Himalayan valley was once ocean floor. High above glacier-fed valleys and terraced hills, Nepal harbors one of the world's last high-altitude rhododendron forests that bloom above 4,000 meters. Do you know Kathmandu Durbar Square preserves wooden lattices and stone guardians that date back to the 12th century and hide rituals few outsiders ever witness? Step into Bhaktapur and you enter a maze of courtyards where kings once held court and festivals still command the skies. The Hanuman Doka complex is named for the monkey god that watches over carved struts, towering pagodas, and secret chambers. Kathmandu, the wooden pavilion from which Kathmandu takes its name, stands as a weathered memory of timber and myth. Its beams are said to come from a single tree, and that legend threads through the city's identity like a living map. Among narrow alleys, the Kumari Bahal hides the living goddess, whose presence maintains an unbroken ceremonial link to the monarchy. Pilgrims and tourists collide under the same eaves, watching rituals that refuse to yield to modern calendars. Stone lions mark gateways, while rooftop stupas chime with prayer flags that flutter over centuries of political change. Every carved window holds stories of patrons, artisans, and earthquakes that reshaped but did not erase this layered cityscape. When the 2015 quake shattered spires, craftsmen revived lost techniques, stitching broken wood and brick back into living history. You sense Kathmandu as an uninterrupted tapestry, where sacred hilltops and palace courtyards exchange meaning across generations. To stand here is to listen to wood, stone, prayer, and commerce speaking in the same breath, an urban cathedral of lived tradition. And as you leave through an archway, the carved faces seem to watch you carry a piece of the square into the wider city. This is a place where history is not behind glass, but underfoot, waiting to be read by anyone who cares to look closely. Every step forward feels like turning another page in a story that expands from palace courtyards to the hills beyond. Nepal is one of the only countries where soaring alpine glaciers descend within a day's walk into lush subtropical river valleys. Do you know that the Kathmandu Valley was once a vast lake whose mythical drying created Swayambhunath, the self-existent hill that still watches the city today? Perched on its ancient stupa-studded ridge, Swayambhunath is older than the surrounding city and blends Buddhist and Hindu devotion in a single skyway. Pilgrims, monks, and mischievous rhesus macaques share the terraces, creating a living tapestry of rituals, prayers, and unexpected moments. Legend calls Swayambhunath the self-originated shrine, born when the valley's waters drained and a lotus transformed into the hill we climb today. But beneath legend lies centuries of restoration, art and stone, intricate monasteries, and fluttering prayer flags that record generations of faith. From the base, visitors ascend a stairway flanked by stone lions and prayer wheels, each turn whispering centuries of mantras into the wind. At the summit, the gilded stupa's all-seeing eyes gaze across Kathmandu, and every painted mandala seems to rotate with the pilgrims' clockwise circumambulations. Monkeys weave through the crowds, sometimes stealing snacks, sometimes offering comic relief, yet their presence is woven into the temple's rituals and local lore. Locals believe the monkeys are guardians, descendants of deities, and their antics have shaped stories that tourists seldom glimpse. Inside the smaller shrines, ancient murals depict cycles of birth, death, and rebirth in colors that time has softened but never silenced. Walk beyond the main stupa, and you find quiet courtyards where Buddhist debates once echoed and where the city's skyline folds into terraced rooftops. It's a place where history layers upon history. Nuar craftsmanship, Tibetan influences, and centuries of pilgrim footprints converging on a single hill. At dusk, the prayer flags catch the dying light, and Swayambhunath becomes a lantern, watching over the valley, a beacon woven from stone and belief. To understand Kathmandu, you must climb these steps. To understand Swayambhunath is to hear the valley's past stitched into a single, weathered smile. Bhaktapur Durbar Square preserves one of the most intact ensembles of medieval palace architecture in the Himalayas. Its 55-window palace and carved courtyards, a Newar legacy. Do you know, Bhaktapur's Nyatapola temple soars 5 stories high as a rare pagoda achievement, built to endure both devotion and tremor. Walk its brick alleys to find potters shaping clay in open squares, their families firing terracotta in the same kilns for generations. Every carved window and lintel is a chapter, depicting gods, merchants, and local myths, etched in wood with precision that reads like a living archive. Artisans still repair gilt copper roofs and restore stone sculptures with techniques handed down from the Malla kings, making the square both museum and workshop. During festivals, the square becomes a living theater, masked dancers and hymn singers stitching present devotion to rites repeated for centuries. Taste Bhaktapur's famed Juju Dao, a silky yogurt whose flavor traces back to the valley's unique water and long dairy traditions. One mouthful links courtyards to terraced pastures and shows how food, faith, and architecture co-evolved in this compact medieval city. Sunlight across the open basins highlights hidden reliefs and faded inscriptions that map alliance, floods survived, and craftspeople who signed their work in tiny marks. Locals read these stone stories easily. Visitors learn to see the city as a woven text rather than a static backdrop. From the palace, lanes lead past pottery squares to royal baths and then slope upward, offering rooftop views that frame the distant hills. Those rooftops and lanes guide you toward the next sculpted city across the valley, where related guilds kept similar traditions. Leaving Bhaktapur, you take with you patterns, rituals, and terraced that ease the transition to Patan's carved courts. The square's quiet lessons about resilience and craft become the hinge connecting one ancient city to the next on this cultural map. In the shadow of the Himalayas, Nepal shelters one of the planet's last great subtropical riverine ecosystems where grasslands, sal forest, and oxbow lakes converge. Do you know that in Chitwan National Park, Nepal, the rare greater one-horned rhinoceros, elusive Bengal tiger, and freshwater gharial crocodile share the same floodplain habitats? Here the Raptai and Narayani rivers braid through wetlands that pulse with migratory birds and secretive mammals. A single boat ride can pass herons, mugger crocodiles, and marsh deer within sight of each other. Conservation in Chitwan was once an experiment so fragile that in the 1960s, rhinos had nearly vanished from Nepal's map. Today, community patrols, transboundary cooperation, and careful ecotourism have coaxed populations back from the brink. Guides will tell you how the scent of crushed grass can betray a tiger's nearby presence long before you glimpse its stripes. On silent dawn walks, footprints in the mud read like a living history of predator and prey. Beyond wildlife, Chitwan's Tharu communities hold seasons, stories, and skills tuned to the rhythms of the floodplain. Their traditional stilt houses, medicinal knowledge, and elephant-assisted crop practices connect culture directly to the land. Yet Chitwan is not an island. Its rivers thread east toward Koshi and west toward Bardia, tying Nepal's Terai together. This corridor is vital because animals do not respect park boundaries and need safe routes between protected areas. Researchers in boats study gharial nests, while students from nearby towns learn to read the forest signals for the future. Tourists who come quietly can witness this fragile balance and leave with a responsibility rather than just a photograph. As monsoon waters rise, new islands appear and ancient paths vanish, reminding us that Chitwan is a landscape of change. Protecting it means balancing livelihoods, flood dynamics, and species recovery across an entire region of Nepal. In a single subtropical Terai floodplain lies Lumbini, Nepal's sacred grove that is one of the few continuously preserved ancient pilgrimage gardens in the world. Do you know Lumbini still guards the exact birth spot of Siddhartha Gautama, marked by the ancient Ashoka pillar and the Mayadevi pond? Pilgrims have walked these shaded paths for millennia, stepping between modern monasteries and excavated ruins that whisper earlier ageses. A modest sandstone marker, the Holy Ashokan inscription, names the site and ties modern Nepal directly to an emperor's 3rd century declaration. The Mayadevi temple sits over the original shrine. Its mud brick remains revealing layers of devotion and architecture spanning over 2,000 years. Around it, a clear spring still forms the classical Mayadevi pond, where legend says the newborn Buddha took his first 7 steps. Across the monastic zone, Dozens of international monasteries line tranquil avenues, each reflecting different Buddhist traditions and modern contemplative design. These small temples are clasped by groves of sal and fig trees that attract migratory birds and weave a living canopy over ancient stones. By evening, incense and lamp offerings outline pathways and transform the garden into a soft constellation of faith and memory. Yet Lumbini is not frozen in the past. UNESCO protection and an international development plan have stitched conservation with pilgrimage and tourism. Walk further, and the site subtly shifts into a broader cultural landscape, linking to Kapilvastu, the kingdom where Siddhartha grew up. That connection makes Lumbini both a birthplace and a doorway, leading visitors from the intimate pond to roots that trace a young prince's journey. Here, silence is a form of history. Each step is both simple landscape and an invitation to consider how one life reshaped half the world. Standing on the soil where an infant was born, travelers often find they leave with a different sense of time, place, and belonging. Everest Base Camp sits at 5,364 meters on a shifting glacial moraine beneath the Khumbu Icefall, one of the planet's rare living glaciers that moves several meters each year. Do you know Everest Base Camp is carved into that glacier's ancient story, where ice preserves climatic memories few places on Earth can match? Trekkers arrive through a trail that threads Namche Bazaar, the Sherpa heartland that feels like a high-altitude bazaar suspended against the mountains. From Namche, the path climbs past rhododendron forests and prayer flags toward Tengboche, where a monastery overlooks the valley and guards the road. Higher still, the village is thin and tea houses become lifelines, warm hearths offering soup and shared stories to battling altitude and weather. Each step brings you past memorials, cairns, and whispering mani stones that map a long history of mountaineering and local devotion. In the lee of Everest, climbers set up camps that pulse with quiet industry. Ropes are fixed, oxygen cylinders checked, and weather windows awaited. At base camp, the world shrinks to tents, tents to teams, and teams to fragile plans against avalanches, crevasses, and thin air. Yet it is not only danger here, it is community, from yaks hauling supplies to Sherpa crews whose knowledge makes summits possible. Their songs and laughter echo across the moraine, a human soundtrack stitched into the glacier's slow, relentless movement. On clear mornings, climbers hike to nearby Kala Pathar to watch Everest ignite at sunrise, gold spilling down rock and snow in sudden silence. That light changes how people remember the mountain, turning a brutal climb into a hymn sung by thousands who have stood beneath it. Scientists now study this valley to read melting patterns and glacial retreat that echo global warming's larger story. Every melted patch, every newly exposed moraine, tells a data point in a planetary narrative written in ice and stone. For many, reaching base camp is a pilgrimage, less about summiting Everest and more about standing within its shadow and finding perspective. Here, human smallness meets stubborn endurance, and minutes of exhaustion yield lifelong clarity about risk, resilience, and belonging. The route that connects villages to base camp knits together cultures, economies, and ecosystems into a fragile corridor of survival. Protecting that corridor means balancing tourism, tradition, and climate action to keep these trails open for generations. Each decade changes the face of the Khumbu, but the stories carried by its people remain, passed on like prayer flags to the next porter. In the end, Everest Base Camp is both a destination and a mirror, reflecting our planet's power and our duty to steward it. On the Annapurna Circuit, Nepal's rare vertical tapestry lets you walk from tropical rice terraces to icy moraine fields in fewer than 7 hours. Do you know that Thorong La on the Annapurna Circuit rises to 5,416 meters, forming a dramatic weather divide and an ancient trade route still used by mule caravans? The journey begins at Besisahar, where swollen rivers and foothill villages fade into rhododendron forests and steep switchbacks. From Cham, you can feel the landscape tilt toward Tibetan plateaus as prayer flags begin to flutter above stone stupas. Higher still, Pisang and Manang offer fragile orchards and Mani walls before the trail narrows into high desert and the silhouette of Tilicho looms. Tilicho Lake sits at nearly 4,919 meters, one of the planet's highest bodies of fresh water, and its turquoise surface seems impossibly placed beneath snowfields. Manang's acclimatization days reveal Gurung and Thakali culture, honey wine rituals, and trail seaside tea houses that keep mountaineers warm. As you climb toward Thorong Phedi, the air thins and the panorama opens to the massive white ramparts of Annapurna and Dhaulagiri. Crossing Thorong La is less an athletic feat than a passage through history where Buddhist Gompas meet Himalayan nomads. The descent to Muktanath shifts the mood from harsh highlands to sacred valleys where pilgrims perform fire lighting rituals at ancient temples. Then the trail bends toward Jomsom and Kagbeni, gateways to Mustang, where windswept canyons and arid mesas recall Tibetan plateaus. Marfa's apple orchards and traditional distilleries contrast sharply with the icy heights you left behind, stitching culinary culture into the landscape. But perhaps the strangest secret of the circuit is how quickly a single trail can reveal Nepal's climatic extremes, from humid valley mists to wind-swept aridity in less than a week. Every village preserves its own myths, from mule drivers recounting snowstorms that reroute entire caravans to old women tracing salt routes past Kagbeni. By the time you drop back into green terraces and the lakeside calm of Pokhara, the Annapurna Circuit has rewritten your sense of scale and belonging. Langtang National Park shelters one of the world's rare zones where subtropical oak and rhododendron forests yield to permanent glaciers within the span of a single day's climb. Do you know Langtang National Park hosts both the elusive red panda and the snow leopard in ranges that overlap across its steep ridges and hidden valleys? Walk through its lower slopes and you enter fragrant rhododendron groves that explode into color each spring, carpeted by orchids and medicinal herbs that local Tamang healers still collect. Higher up the trail opens into the Langtang Valley, often called Nepal's mini Tibet, where yak pastures and stone-built villages cluster beneath the jagged face of Langtang Lirum. Each pass reveals another ecosystem, another way people have learned to read the mountains, the paths themselves, the living archives of survival. Visit during spring for the rhododendrons, in autumn for clear mountain light, and in winter for the hush of snow that reveals hidden animal tracks. But the deepest surprise in Langtang is human. Villages that rebuilt from ruin, monasteries that keep ancient chants alive, and children who now study climate science on the very ridgelines their grandparents once read by starlight. As you trace those trails, you realize Langtang is not just a park, but a living threshold between cultures, climates, and the future of the Himalaya. And every step there asks a question. How will these valleys endure? And what will we do to keep these rare collages of life in peace for the next generation? Upper Mustang's landscape is one of the world's rare cold deserts, its red cliffs sliced into honeycomb caves. Do you know that Upper Mustang remained a closed kingdom until 1992, preserving Tibetan traditions, secret murals, and ancient salt routes? From the dusty gateway of Lumbini, the trail climbs into a high plateau that feels more Tibetan than Nepalese. This is where the Kali Gandaki begins its descent, and where mule caravans once moved salt and copper across barren passes. Langtang, the walled capital, sits like a jewel of ochre and white against a clear blue sky, its red palace facing frozen peaks. Monks in maroon robes keep centuries-old rituals, while local women braid turquoise beads that trace back to barter with Tibet. You will find caves carved with skull cups and wall paintings that blend Bon shamanic imagery with Buddhist iconography. Archaeologists have unearthed fossils and ancient Tibetan scripts here, evidence of routes that linked empires and nomads for millennia. The Tiji Festival in Langtang transforms the silent, windswept valley into a riot of masks, drums, and seasonal prayers. Each dance tells stories of disease, drought, and renewal, binding villagers to a landscape that demands respect and ritual. From Mustang, the route gently reconnects to the Annapurna region, offering trekkers a bridge between lush terraced slopes and stark trans-Himalayan desert. Jomsom's dusty air and roaring winds are the transition, where trekkers trade down jackets for sun hats and dusty tails for highland silence. Permits still control access, which keeps Mustang's stone streets and mud brick homes startlingly intact compared with other popular Nepalese treks. Local Thakali cuisine, spicy and hearty, fuels long marches and tastes of almonds and apricot that thrive in canyon microclimates. Look into narrow side gullies and you'll find cliffside caves, once used as burial shrines, stairwells carved by hands centuries ago. Wind and salt have scoured pigments from many murals, yet fragments reveal colors and faces that seem to watch travelers as guardians. Perched at 3,440 meters, Namche Bazaar is one of the few mountain towns in the world that doubles as an essential acclimatization hub and a bustling Himalayan marketplace. From the narrow airstrips of Lukla to the stone stairways that climb toward Tengboche, trekkers arrive here carrying more than backpacks. They bring curiosity and the need to catch their breath. Do you know Namche's high-altitude market once attracted caravans of yaks carrying Tibetan salt and silk, creating a cultural crossroads that still hums today? On Saturdays, traders lay out dried meats, thick yak butter, prayer flags, and modern trekking gear side by side. A living timeline of Sherpa heritage and global mountaineering. The town's perched vantage offers a rare, nearly panoramic first glimpse of Everest, Lhotse, and Ama Dablam that has guided climbers for generations. Locals move between tea houses and lodges like clockwork, their faces etched by sun and wind, recounting weather patterns in the same breath as tales of summits reached and lost. Namche is also where acclimatization turns from abstract advice into ritual. Slow hikes to the Everest View Hotel, short ascents to nearby ridgelines, and afternoons spent sipping butter tea to steady the lungs. This small town hides a surprising collection of museums and galleries where Sherpa oral histories, expedition equipment, and sacred artifacts preserve stories often omitted from mountaineering lore. The microclimate here creates sudden clearings that reveal jagged peaks framed like cathedral spires, moments that have changed the course of countless expeditions. Yet beneath the postcard views lie quieter economies, honey farms, beekeeping projects, and community-run schools that bind tourism to sustainable development. From Namche, trails fan out. Some lead back toward Lukla and the lowlands. Others push upward past Tengboche's prayer flags, toward base camp and the thin air of ambition. Its lessons stay with every step thereafter. Manang Valley in Nepal holds one of the planet's most concentrated arrays of alpine lakes and ancient glacial moraines within a single 3,000-meter elevation band. Do you know Tiliko Lake in Manang sits above 5,000 meters, making it one of the highest large lakes on Earth and a secret magnet for hikers? From the moment the trail drops into the valley, irrigation terraces, barley fields, and prayer flag-draped chortens reveal a world shaped by extreme altitude and human tenacity. Locals here grow highland barley, rear yaks, and trade handcrafted Tibetan-style goods while preserving medicinal plant knowledge that outsiders seldom glimpse. The valley is a living library of trans-Himalayan culture, where ancient Gampa like Braga's house murals, older than many European churches. Between cramped stone villages and sweeping glacial fans, you can trace routes used for centuries by pilgrims, shepherds, and traders crossing Thorongla. Manang's climate is oddly paradoxical. Shielded by the Annapurna Massif, it sits in a rain shadow that creates alpine deserts, punctuated by fertile green oases. This dramatic contrast nurtures rare species, and on silent nights, the slopes sometimes register sightings of the elusive snow leopard. Walking from Manang toward Kangsar, every stile and stream connects stories of avalanche survival, yak caravans, and the stubborn craft of stone masonry. That path, in turn, threads into the Annapurna Circuit, linking Manang's solitude to bustling trailhead towns and the challenge of the Rongla Pass. Local guest houses double as cultural hubs, where elders recount oral maps of glacier shifts that changed river courses within living memory. Those same conversations reveal how climate change and tourism are reshaping livelihoods, forcing new water management and grazing rhythms. In spring, alpine meadows explode with primulas and fragile orchids that herbalists harvest carefully, passing ancestral conservation laws in practice, if not on paper. And in winter, the valley's silence becomes a study in resilience as families seal homes against wind and snow, sharing grain and story. Manang Valley is more than a stop on a map. It is a highland ecosystem and culture knitted to glaciers, trade routes, and the Annapurna skyline. To understand Nepal's mountains, you must walk Manang's stone alleys, drink butter tea with a shepherd, and listen as the valley explains itself. From glaciers that carve the roof of the world to subtropical rivers cradling rare one-horned rhinoceros, Nepal stitches together extremes few nations possess. It is a land where prayer flags flutter above ancient stupas, where Sherpa villages guard Everest's approaches, and where hidden terraced valleys hold centuries of living culture. You leave Pokhara with reflections from Fiwa Lake and cross into Annapurna's mosaic of rhododendron forests, each trail folding into the next like chapters of a single story. From Mustang's arid canyons to the lush floodplains of Chitwan, every landscape morphs into the following, connected by rivers, trade routes, and the footsteps of generations. And if you journey for the postcard sunsets over the Himalaya, you'll return with stories of markets, monsoon rivers, and an unexpected hospitality that stays with you. What makes Nepal unforgettable is not a single peak or temple, but the way contrasts converse, the roar of cascades answering the chant of monks, the grit of traders matching the patience of herders. This is a place where hidden wonders reveal themselves only to those who keep walking, listening, and looking beyond the obvious. Carry these landscapes with you, and you'll find their echoes in your own rhythms of curiosity and courage. When you close this chapter, Nepal will still be there, reshaping itself, inviting you back to the seams where nature and culture meet.